Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today's topic, squeaky chairs. Just kidding. It's not really squeaky chairs. But for some reason, I cannot find a chair that doesn't squeak. Like I found these chairs on Amazon. Or I should say my wife found these chairs on Amazon. Super comfortable. Love them. But they squeak like hell. And so I got these other ones from IKEA that are really hard, but initially didn't squeak at all. And now apparently I moved too much in them and they squeak. So if you hear any squeaking in the background, yes, that is my squeaky chair. But listen, today's topic has to do with results, but not in the way that you would think, right? Not in the way that you would think. I want to share something with you. When I was working as a police officer, we spent a lot of time at the hospital. We would either take prisoners there or we would take phone calls there or calls there, with victims or whatever. We spent a lot of time at the hospital. So eventually you got to know some of the nurses, you got to know some of the doctors, some of the people that work there, right? And there was this one particular hospital that there was a nurse there and her husband was a police officer. And so when we ended up there, she was working, we'd say hi, really friendly, very nice. And just a really good person. Well, one of these days we end up I end up at the hospital taking a call. And when I'm done, she's there. So we're having a quick conversation and I don't even remember how we got on the topic, but it had to do with babies, right? Cause she had worked in the labor and delivery area before. So she takes me upstairs to the labor and delivery area. She's like, I want to show you something. Well, I've got 3 kids, right? I've seen babies. I've been to the hospital for friends when they've had their babies. Like, I've seen babies. This concept of babies isn't anything new to me, right? But she's like, I want to show you something. So she takes me upstairs. We go up the elevator. We go down this hallway and come around the corner. And then you see, I don't even remember what the room's called. But it's the room where they've got all the newborns, right? And they're trying to keep them warm and make sure they're monitored and make sure they're all taken care of, right? But we don't stop there. We go a little farther. And as we go this little farther, I start to hear this baby crying. But it's not the typical newborn baby crying. And you guys who have been around babies or have had babies, you know what I'm talking about. This was a baby that was in pain. And I was trying to figure out what was going on, right? Because it was an excruciating sound. It was a half scream, half cry. And I kind of turned and looked at this woman and I'm like, what is going on here? What is this? And she's like, you'll see. And so she takes me around the corner and then there's a baby in the same type of room, but smaller. And she's there by herself. And I'm like, why is this baby by itself? And why is this baby screaming like this? And she turns to me and she goes, this baby was born in the last 24 hours. I'm like, okay. Is that why it's screaming? She said, no. The reason it's screaming is because the baby's addicted to heroin. And I looked at her and I was like, what? She's like, the baby's addicted to heroin. The baby's mother's a heroin addict and continued to use heroin throughout the pregnancy. And now this baby is addicted to heroin. I was like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, no, I'm serious. Whatever a mother has inside of her system, as she's growing this baby, she is passing everything on to the baby. Now, mind you, I'd never thought about this before. I mean, you hear stories about mothers who might have cancer or who have cancer and choose not to do chemotherapy and possibly die. And some of them do because they don't want to pass it on to this baby. Well, I'd never thought about this with something like drugs. So what happens is when this woman gives birth, right? They check the baby and the baby's got drugs in the system. They take the baby away from the mother. Like the mother has to earn the right back to be a mother. Right? She's a drug addict. She's not fit to be a mother. So I remember sitting there watching this poor drug addicted baby, writhing around in pain. I mean, you guys have all seen babies and how much they struggle to do just the basic things. Now, just imagine a baby, a newborn baby, struggling with life within its first 24 hours, trying to overcome this addiction. Now, it's not just trying to overcome an addiction with, some separate drug that's meant to wean the addiction off. No, this is straight up like cold turkey. If any of you have ever tried to quit something cold turkey, you know how hard it is. Imagine trying to quit an addiction that isn't yours within the first 24 hours of life. Like, I couldn't even imagine. And I sat there stunned, not understanding what was going on. Like wanting to help the baby, but knowing that there was no way to help the baby. And I left there just in like shocked silence. I mean, who would want to do this to a poor newborn baby? I was so angry at this woman for bringing this child into the world addicted to drugs. Now, mind you, this is not something that this baby will like overcome and then the rest of its life it'll be fine. The rest of its life, this baby will be a drug addict. It may or may not know it, but it's going to have a craving for drugs, for heroin, because it's already tasted it. It already knows what it's like. The mind knows what it's like. And whether it likes it or not, it's going to be there. And I remember I struggled with this for a long time, but it didn't come full circle to me until many years later. Many years later, when I'm finally starting to figure out what in the hell it is that I've done in my life and why it is that things aren't working the way I want them to. And more particularly in this instance, it was the relationship with my oldest son. Now, my oldest son and I have struggled for many years. Like, we haven't been close. He's got his particular way of doing things, which is more like his mother and not like me. Like, I love to be outside and playing sports and playing video games, not playing video games. I like being outside and going for hikes and playing sports and like, I love being active. I love moving. He prefers to sit on the couch. He likes to watch TV. He likes to play video games, like that kind of stuff. When he was younger, I wanted him to play sports. So what would I do? I would try and force him to play sports. Like, I remember he's 5 years old. I'm coaching his soccer team. And I'm yelling at him to run. He's standing in the middle of the field crying, and every other kid and the ball is just running by him left, running by him right, running by him left, running like back and forth. And I was so mad at this kid. I'm like, why aren't you chasing the ball? Go chase the ball. This is soccer. This is what you're supposed to do, right? And I'm yelling at this poor 5-year-old kid, and he's sitting there crying, right? And then I tried the same thing with baseball, and I tried the same thing with football, and I tried the same thing with all these different sports, and he didn't like them. Like, he just didn't like them. Finally, I just gave up. Well, as I'm going through this phase of where have I screwed up my life and where do I need to fix things, obviously just past my wife were my kids, right? The relationship with them. And I realized that we didn't have a close relationship. And I kept struggling with the why. And so, of course, at this time, I'm not being asshole dad. I'm right. I've changed my actions. I've changed my behaviors. But for some reason, my son was being a little asshole. Like, he would yell and scream at his little sister, at his little brother, sometimes at his mother, sometimes at me. And I'm like, where does this kid get this attitude? And I remember being so pissed off and frustrated. Mind you, he was like 15 at the time. I remember being so pissed off and frustrated at him that I sent him to his room. I yelled at him. I sent him to his room. And I turned and looked at my wife, and I'm like, I cannot believe this kid. Like, where does he get this from? And she literally just stared at me. And she's like, you. And of course, at first, I'm like posturing. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. She's like, yeah, it may not be much of who you are today, but it's definitely who you were for 15 years of his life. And I was like, she hit the nail on the head, right? This was me. This is how I behaved. This was my action in front of him and to him. I was always angry. I was always yelling. I was always mad. super easy to get frustrated, super annoyed when things didn't go my way. Like, this was me. This kid was my mirror. And then it hit me. Just like that drug-addicted mother had passed on that heroin to that baby, I had passed on my specific behaviors and actions to him. Like, why was he acting like a little asshole? Because Big Asshole showed him how to do it. For 15 years. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. I got mad at him. I yelled at him. I would make him do it. And now I'm watching him exhibit that same behavior with his brother and sister. I'm telling him, right, you need to be nicer. You need to love them. You guys need to do this together. I'm telling him that. But my actions for the last 15 years have shown something different, something completely different. And I sat there, and it must have been like 2 hours, and my mind just like going crazy. I'm like, I have literally created this. I created it. Nobody else. It wasn't society. It wasn't the news. It wasn't the phone. It wasn't the internet. Like, it was me. I'd created this. And I remember thinking, like, what can I do? What can I do? And then it came to me, like, there is something I can do. And it's literally shifting the behavior now. Like, stop yelling. Is there time to yell at your kid? Yeah, right? He does something completely stupid. Okay. But not with the frequency that I was doing it. And not cutting him down. And not mocking him. And not doing these things that, I'd used at work, in jest to kind of, buddy with people and, that kind of thing. Kids don't need that. And so I literally birthed this creation, right? His behaviors and actions came from me. Now, I want you to ask yourself, like, where in your life has this become apparent to you? Like, you have birthed this creation. It could be in your relationship with your kids. It could be in your relationship with your spouse. It could be in your business. Like, you've birthed this thing. You want to know why your employees are assholes to everybody around them? Well, it's probably because you're an asshole. You want to know why your employees get walked on and run over on calls and in person? Probably because you're the same way. Like, the environment around you is created by one person and one person only. And that's you. So how do we change it? We have to shift our focus. Like, I shifted my focus. Instead of trying to get my son to do what I wanted him to do or to act a certain way, is how do I help my son get what he wants out of life? See, because nobody had ever shown me that. They just told me what not to do. Nobody had actually shown me what to do. Now think about this. How would your life be different if you actually showed people what to do? Not told them what to do, but showed them what to do instead of what not to do. Like, I love the, you see parents, they watch movies with their kids and, they're drinking and they're smoking and they're like, don't do that. Like, you don't want to do that. And the parents do the same thing. It's like, what do you think your kids are going to do? They're going to do exactly what you do, not what you tell them to do, but what you do. So today, take the time and examine your life. Like, what is it that you've created? Like, the actions in your life will lead to the outcomes that you want. So are you birthing a drug-addicted baby? Or are you creating something different, something more special? I invite you to consider that. And if you're looking for tools to help you change, I got some for you. Go to winthedailywar.com. There's some free stuff there for you. It's free. It'll help you with your business. It'll help you with your personal life. It'll help you with wherever it is that you are right now, that you're unsatisfied and you want more. That's what it's there for. Because we can be more. We can do more. We can get more. If we choose to. Take that action. All right, that is it for today. As always, Stay safe, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you on the next one.